Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Have a great day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shelly, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 17th, 1994. If I stay sober for a couple more weeks, I will be sober 20 years this month. I agree. I cannot believe that I've been sober. Number one, I don't want to be 20 years older than what I was. But if you got to be, I'm glad that I'm 20 years older sober, because it would not have been looking good had I not been sober. I still find that an amazing miracle that I'm a person who tried every way she knew how to not drink, and I couldn't not drink. And then I walked into these rooms, and 20 years later, I'm still sober. That is something to be happy about. We got here about, we loaded a car up last night in Baton Rouge at 7:30 with my crazy grown-ass women friends, and we got here at 11, and somewhere around there, after we visited the entrance gate to Chevron, right, or something, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, my God, let's get out of here. I watch way too many Criminal Minds. This is scary. But I got into the cabin, and I said, well, let's check number 13 off my bucket list, going to Grand Isle. I have lived in Louisiana my whole life, and I've never been to Grand Isle. So there you go. I would have been here last year, but my son was getting married, and I needed to be there. The first thing I want to do is thank Patricia. Where is she? Okay. Thanks for asking me. It's always good for me to tell my story. I don't know. They think that you need to hear my story. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you my story. The one thing that I know is every time I do, I remember. I remember what it was like. I remember what happened and what it's like now. And that is good for me. I need to continue to do that, and I'm so blessed. Also, who made the pretty basket that I found in my room? Where's the committee? Whoever the committee is, that was the sweetest thing. That was just really, really special, and it made me feel special. And I don't think I'm comfortable in anywhere else like I am in the rooms of AA. I'm just not. I love my family. I've got a great family. We had a lot of family time last year. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But this is my comfort zone, and I'm so grateful for that. I really am. I'm going to do I am committed to being absolutely truthful with you about my story. Accuracy, not so much. What I have come to understand is that I suffer from a past that did not happen. No, I mean, really, hear me. My perception of my past is what I suffer from. And I'm constantly amazed, the longer I stay sober, how I see things differently. An example of that is, so that you kind of know where I'm coming from on that. I must have been about 16, and it was my birthday, and I really, really, really wanted to be friends with all the popular girls at school, the cheerleaders and all that. I was so not a cheerleader. I was 5'7" and 130 pounds in the 8th grade. They used to call me the Amazon woman. Literally. I mean, but I wanted to be friends, so we had this party, and so we're having a slumber party, and they're all over. Well, about midnight, any women you know, you get a small group of women, they're going to turn on one of us, huh? I mean, it's just the way it is. We got a queen bee, and anyway. And I was the one they weren't being nice to. So I trotted myself up to my mother's sewing room at midnight. Now, mind you, she's sewing at midnight, right? And I'm like, Mom, they are being so mean to me. And she says, Shelly, just go back and be nice. Now, my mother did not mean for me to take that on as a life mantra, okay? But what I heard at 16 was, if I am nice, it's going to make everything okay, you're going to be my friend, and I'm going to come out on top. That is what I heard. So that's that whole perception thing. I'm the oldest of 5. My dad is an alcoholic, and he's been sober well over 30 years, and he's still alive and he's still sober. I had a great childhood, guys. I mean, I was not locked in a room and not fed. I was not beat. You know, we had very, very organized daily. Daddy came home, Mom cooked dinner, we had chores, you know. We went to private schools early on. We had to hang up our little uniforms and do our little chores, and that was my life. And we went to church. And so I cannot blame my alcoholism on my upbringing. I just can't. You know, I just screwed up all by myself. When I left home at about 18, there were 2 or 3 things that I know now that I believed. I believed that you could not depend on men. I did. My daddy was, and he's just guys nodding, my dad was a great guy, but he was emotionally unavailable. He was quiet and emotionally unavailable, and God bless him. There were 3 girls, okay, and then the 2 boys. Well, when we'd all come to I could just see my dad going, holy crap, and he'd just kind of sneak away, you know. So he was very, very absent. So then I had a very, very strong German, Catholic, beer-drinking mama. And I mean to tell you, she was a Cornhusker. She was born and raised in Nebraska, and she could put a whooping on you like I can't even believe. I mean, even as recent as 3 years ago, I'm like, Mom, I can't shop anymore. I need oxygen. You know, I could not keep up with Mom. She was amazing. So I had this really quiet, absent dad and this really, really prominent mom. And so, you know, I come out of there thinking, can't trust Dad, self-sufficiency, do it yourself, don't trust anybody, do it yourself. Being the oldest of 5, I was groomed to be a caretaker. I was groomed to be codependent. I could get a medal for being codependent. I took care of everybody. I took care of I just took care of everybody. And because my dad was so absent, I also became very, 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 very close to my mom, and probably at a young age knew things I really didn't need to know. Now, none of it was criminal or horrible, but it was emotional stuff that I wasn't prepared, you know, to handle. So, I mean, literally, guys, at the age of 10, I was keeping my baby brother is 10 years younger than me. So he had just been born. At the age of 10, I was babysitting 4 kids, one which was a newborn, because we were building a new house, and I didn't think anything of it. I did not think anything of being a 10-year-old and cooking meals and all that kind of stuff. So I was groomed. So I came out of that situation thinking I needed to take care of everybody. I needed to, and I was very, very empathetic. I probably still am, and you are right about that, Patricia. I am. I have a soft spot for hurting. In fact, I probably can feel your pain better than my own. I know that now, and I can say that now. I did not know that about me. So, you know, I'm going to do life. Every guy I dated was needy in some way just because I was such a good caretaker. So I was going to put you through school, or it just was so easy for me. That's just the way it was. I started to work early, and I gloried in working. You know, I told you I wasn't the cheerleader type, okay? And we came from a family where my dad was just a blue-collar worker, and neither one of my parents had college educations. And so I just came from that humble background. They were hard workers. I mean, I cannot even believe. It still amazes me when I think about my parents and I think about how hard they've worked and how dedicated they were. That was one of the other things that I came out of my family knowing is working hard is everything. I was told always that you will beat 90% of the people if you just show up and apply yourself. And I still believe that. I mean, okay.
There's a vehicle in the parking lot, a silver Ford Expedition, parked in the library parking. Darren B., the cops are fixing to tow your car. Please go move it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's okay. And so I had these really, really strong, work hard, take care of people, don't trust men, and self-sufficiency. And so that's how I left my parents' home. And I remember working early. I started working when I was a freshman in high school. I would teach swimming lessons on the summers, and then, by the time I was a junior in high school, I was in one of those CEO programs where you could go to school half a day and work the other half, which was great because I like to work. I got my attaboys from working. And so I remember my first job was at the Waffle House on Airline Highway where Cedar Crest comes, and because it was between school and my house. And so, and I paid cash for my first car. But I gloried in that. And my attitude toward other women who didn't work was, well, must be nice to play tennis. Must be nice to be cheerleader. Must be nice to not have to work. I have to work. I gloried in working. And I wore it like a banner. And I've worn it like a banner most of my life. Some of that's changed as I go through my story, and I'll tell you about that. At 23, well, let me say this. In high school and college, I drank like everybody else. As best I can tell you. Now, if you ask me back here next year, I may have another one of those aha moments where I see something different, because it happens all of the time to me. I remember something or see something that I see differently now at this stage of my sobriety. I drank too much, I partied hard, but I didn't see the alcoholic stuff going on. I just didn't. At about the age of, I was raised in a very, very mainline Catholic family, and lots of structure, lots of rules, and I really adhered to that well, and we liked that. I can remember Mama loading us up in the station wagon. We had a big-ass station wagon, the kind that has the paneling that looks like bugs have eaten it at the end. And we were pulling out of the driveway one day, and she had curlers in her hair, y'all, and they wore those little fluffy things so you couldn't see her curlers, but everybody knew she had her curlers in her hair. And she's backing out, and we're all moaning and crying and fussing, and she backs into the side of the house. And my dad comes out, and he looks at her, and he goes, well, just hit it again, Vi. And, oh, okay. So we go to confession, and she's crying, and God only knows, But that was just that structure, that every week, all the time, she taught Sunday school and all that kind of stuff. Well, at 17, I was 17, something happened to my mom. She met this little Baptist lady down the street. We babysat for her kids. Her name was Miss Hilda. And Miss Hilda got a hold of my mom and started talking to my mom. And y'all, I'm going to share my religious beliefs and my story, and I do not want anybody to be offended, but I'm just going to tell you how it was for me, okay? So this little Baptist lady said, we were going through a really rough time at home because Daddy was drinking. And my dad was a quiet drunk. He went to work. He always showed up, but I didn't know he was drunk. He never yelled and screamed and hollered. He just drank and went to bed. And so things are not okay in our home. And so Mama's talking to this little bitty Baptist lady, and I'm telling you, she's cute as a button. And she starts talking to her about the Word of God. And for a woman who was raised in the Catholic Church, has a sister who's a nun, as God is my witness, she didn't know a lot about the Bible. And so this little lady starts teaching her some things. And we had a huge, huge shift in my family at that time. We had a very huge shift. I believe the best way to express it, and I think everybody in this room will understand it, we shifted from religious to spiritual, from rules to a relationship. We got that, don't we? And so that was huge. And we started going to a church out on campus called the Chapel on the Campus. It was non-denominational, and we thought it was the best thing in the whole world. I got to tell you, we could wear blue jeans to church, and we just kind of melded right in. In that environment, I met my husband. And so already you can see I'm in a pretty conservative, you know, I'm a big book thumper. I'm also a Bible thumper. Okay, I just am. And so that's my little environment. And it's real safe, and everybody looks right, and we do the right, you know, do the right thing, say the right thing. Yeah, right. But that's how we looked on the outside. I mean, you know, and I met my husband. And I got married. We got married when I was 23 and he was 24. Now, having told you what I told you, guess what kind of guy he was? Quiet, emotionally unavailable, and he, like me, had a very, very, very strong female presence in a mother. His mother was amazing. She was just an amazing woman. She was a truly, truly, truly Southern woman. She had all the grace of, I don't know who. I was going to say Scarlett O'Hara, but I'm not real sure she had a lot of grace. But, I mean, she had that gracious Southernness about her. But she was like the, you know, you hear the expression, the iron hand and the velvet glove. That was her. So, I'm going to put him through law school. And that's what we set out doing. I'm going to work, and Wayne's going to go to law school. Well, about 2 semesters of that, y'all, we lived in this little bitty house behind the General on Westmoreland, and about 2 semesters of that, and he's like, I don't want to be a lawyer. It just ain't working. And that was fine with me. I mean, he went into his background, his education was sales and marketing, and so we quit the whole lawyer thing. But, you know, that's just that setup. I have to tell you, and I would not have been able to tell you this a year ago, I would not have been able to verbalize this. I did not, and my husband knows this, so this is no discredit to him. I did not fall in love with a man. I fell in love with the idea of being married. I fell in love with having babies. I fell in love with being a mama, and I fell in love with making a home, because that is all I knew. I gave him all that I had at that time. But little did I know there was this much that I was missing. But I didn't know I was missing, and he didn't know I was missing it either. So we just kind of, you know, go along. Always, always, always working. Lots of jobs. You know, we start having babies. We get a house. You know, I have the best memories of all of that. I really do. And about the time I had a son first, his name is Bennett, and he will be 30 this month. And then I have Sarah, my daughter, who will be 27 in June. And Sarah was probably about 18 months, a year to 18 months in that range. And now I want y'all to know, all this time, I'm just being good. I'm just good. I have Bible study friends. I have church friends. As God is my witness, I married a man who has never been drunk in his life. Now, isn't that sad? Okay? And he has an honesty neurosis. God is my witness. Could never lie on a tax. Could not lie on a tax form. He married an alcoholic who lies by nature. Now, you know, God has a sense of humor. Okay? Because there is no way. How did that happen? So, you know, I'm doing all the things I think I should be doing. Oh, and I'm taking care of sisters now, because both my sisters decided it was better to have babies before they got married, okay, and then get married. And so I'm taking care of them, and I'm kind of keeping peace between Mama and them. And of course, you know, my answer to everything, the first one, she came to me and she goes, she's 19. Now, she's been married 35 years, great husband, great life. She goes, I'm pregnant. I'm like, I got this. I got it. Okay, here's the plan. I am going to go with you and tell Mama, okay? Because I'm so scared. You know, I'd have been scared too, I got to tell you. But, you know, and then, because she married a guy from Baton Rouge, but he was a Tulane football player at the time, going to school at Tulane, and he lived in the athletic dorm. They didn't have any married student dorms open at the time. So they're going to move in with us, right? I'd been married 2 months. Now, isn't that, I don't know if y'all read books about what you're supposed to do or not supposed to do when you get married, but moving your sister and her new husband in when you only been married for 2 months was a big no-no, okay? But it's what I did. I've had so many people live with us over my life. Oh, my God. It's almost staggering. I had no idea that, at one point they said, you need to close the ark, Shelly, you know. But that's just what I did. So, we're working, we got this going on, I'm taking care of this, I'm having babies and all that kind of stuff. And up until that time, self-sufficiency, driven, big time driven. All of that youthful, whatever it is we have, started to wane. And I'm just not I'm just not hitting all of the cylinders all the time. And I'm fraying. And not so much physically, but I'm fraying emotionally. I'm getting pissed off. I'm getting resentful. I'm tired of these damn people living with us. I got a baby that, let me tell you something, my girl is a living doll. But that child did not sleep a full night for 4 years. And you know what? There are a lot of things I can handle, but lack of sleep turns me into a complete bitch. I am so mean that, my children know, unless the house is burning down, do not wake Mama up from a nap. Okay? Because it is bad news. That child was scared to death to sleep by, well, she cried, got up all night, but then when she got older, she was scared. So I wouldn't let her in bed with us. So she had a little camp on the side of our bed. A camp, I'm telling y'all. Because my husband was wiser than I was. This too shall pass, Shelly. It's not that big a deal. She's scared. I promise you, by the time she goes to kindergarten, she'll be sleeping in her own bed. I'm like, well, So I got an attitude about that. And she lived there. She had books and she had animals. No, I'm serious. We had the entire cast of Lion King over here. I never went on side of that bed for 2 years. He had to get over there and pull the sheet up because it aggravated the piss out of me because it wasn't how I wanted it to be, because it wasn't neat, because she wasn't in her own room, all that stuff. She's not sleeping by the side of our bed anymore. Honest to God, one day the child got up she's about 5, picked her stuff up, went into her bedroom, and I swear to God, we didn't see her for 4 years. She was a middle schooler. And, all the things that I stressed over that, were so silly. But the telling thing is that I was stressing. And I was stressing a lot. I was very, very obsessive about exercise. And I was obsessive about everything. I just didn't know it. So, one particularly difficult day. And I don't know. Let's see. Sarah was born in 1987. So let's say 89, about in that range. Have had a tough day with her. And she was a smart cookie, I got to tell you. She and I are so much alike and yet so different. And we would, my firstborn was a typical firstborn. Did what he was supposed to, just like me. And then God gives me this thing. Okay, this is the kind of child that I talked about when, when you're in a restaurant and you go, I can't believe those people can't control their kid. Right? Huh? Well, I got a kid I couldn't control. And I ate every word I ever said about all those parents. We'd had a really rough day. I can remember that night my husband coming home, and she runs and flies into her daddy's arms. She rubs his face and looks at me and says, I love my daddy. I said, you know what, girl? I know that. I got that. I've been doing that a lot longer than you, and you ain't going to win. So it was one of those kind of days. I go into the kitchen, I'm chopping, and I cooked. I'm one of those people, as I cooked every single night for 30 years. My girlfriends finally talked me into quitting cooking, and it's been wonderful. But I had to kick my kids out first because they just kept eating. But I remember having a bottle of wine in the house. Now, I drank on occasion. If we went to dinner, I had one. If I could talk my husband into two, I had two. Not because he was worried about how much I drank. He's just too tight. Okay? So, I mean, my family, because I already had a dad who was an alcoholic and two sisters, and they were in recovery, we didn't drink in my family gatherings. But my husband's did, but they're not alcoholics, so they just drank normal. So I could have a glass of wine, so that's the limit of my drinking. You know, from about 18 to, I don't know. I mean, it was quite a few years, 10 years. Very little. I'm good. I'm so good, right? I pour a glass of wine, and I'm taking a lot of time with this because it is so powerful. I'm chopping, I don't know, something. I go to the cabinet, and it's that nasty pink-looking wine. I mean, I don't know what it was. So I pour a glass of wine, and I can remember I have the same kitchen. I can remember where I was. I can remember what I was doing when I took 2 sips of that wine, and I'm telling you, I got wonderful. I mean, wonderful, y'all. Do you know what I'm talking about? All of a sudden, I went, oh, I'm good. I mean, I could handle anything. It was so pronounced. Just standing here and talking to you about it is almost scary. Because you know what I know now, and I believe now, understanding genetics and all the different things that go on with alcoholism, I had it long before I was drinking on a regular basis. I had the ism. How could I not? I was raised with I just had it. But I was sporadically putting alcohol to the ism. But I was far more interested in doing good and working and building a little house and sewing their clothes and cooking, all that stuff, than the drinking. So that was filling me up until it didn't anymore. And I'm telling you, that one glass of wine put me on, Dorothy and her Yellow Brick Road, let me tell you, it was that dramatic. I started in just being a normal drinker, and by the end of that day, I was on a Yellow Brick Road. I went from being normal to Kansas at the speed of light. It was so powerful. It changed me instantly. Now, I did not know what that was. I did not understand, but I'm like, damn, this is good. And we had a great evening. I bathed my kid, I had a great evening. Well, you think I wanted to have that happen again? Oh, yeah. Okay? So, it became daily. Now, when I say it became daily, I might have missed a day here and there. But I'm telling you, when I was cooking at night, I was having a glass of wine. When my kids were playing outside, you know how they used to be able to play out in the neighborhood and you didn't worry about anybody stealing them, and all the mamas and dads were out there talking, I was drinking wine. In 6 months from that first glass of wine, I was drinking in the morning. The reason that's so important is that it's so progressive. The book tells us that it's very progressive in women. And I progressed at the speed of light. I switched from wine wasn't doing it quick enough. And so I switched from wine at some point to hard liquor. That worked much quicker. But in 6 months, I knew I was in trouble. I knew it. I was standing in my washroom, and I thought, I got to stop this tomorrow. And I knew what was happening. I had a moment, and because I was raised in it, I had a moment of clarity, and I drank it away. I drank away a lot of moments of clarity. I can tell you that. When you know that you know, and I drank it away. I had a little sister, Mary lives in California. She's the youngest of the three girls. Puts her in the middle of the girls and the boys. And my sister probably has been sober about 28 years. So she has more sobriety than I do. Mary had a moment of clarity early on, early in her drinking. She had a blackout. They were at the Bacchus Ball in New Orleans, and she didn't remember it. Now, her husband is like, it's no big deal. You didn't act stupid. You look more sober than the rest of us, which we know that can happen. She had a moment of clarity, and she responded to it. I remember the Sunday after that, or wherever they'd been, she laid on Mama's carpet and cried and cried and cried because she said she knew she was an alcoholic. She just knew it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll help you with that too, She never drank again. Now, although she has done AA, she has not done AA like I have because she honestly didn't really have to. She just had the moment of clarity. She didn't have enough behind her. She quit. She's never had another drink. I drank away moments of clarity day after day after day after day until it was no longer clear at all in any way. Like most of us, I am a master liar. I'm a master deceiver. And if you want me to perform, just give me some music and I'll dance. I kept my alcohol drinking very, very to myself and hidden. I talk about that most of my bottles were in my washroom, and since I was the only one that did wash, nobody ever caught me. And that was really the truth. I was not a bar drinker. I was not a partier. By the time I picked up alcohol and used it, I was drinking just to make it. I was drinking to keep going. I was drinking to push away the fear and the anger and the insecurity so that I could do what I thought I needed to do. I really, really envy y'all who had fun drinking. I'm really serious because my drinking was not about fun. My drinking was just to be okay. It was just, and I tell the story. Alcohol to me in the beginning was like liquid jet fuel. It could make me hover. And the more that I hovered and I was hitting on all 6 cylinders, I could work, y'all. Work. And, but as you all know, you don't do that very long and not start slipping up. Because I never could really recapture that one moment in the kitchen. Not fully. It diminished a little bit every time. And so I had to drink a little more. And so, you know what? I never knew. I never knew in the end what was going to happen. There were many, many days I missed picking up my kids at school because I was drunk. And don't think it wasn't because I didn't drive drunk, because I did. And that is not to my glory. It is by the grace of God that I have 2 children who I did not hurt physically or myself or anybody else. That gift I do not deserve because I broke it. We can say, well, I didn't get a DWI, which I did. I'll get that. But, we can say, but bottom line is I transgressed anyway. I spent money I shouldn't have spent. I did things I should not have done. I was certainly not the daughter, the sister, the friend, the mother, or the wife that I really had intended to be. And that I had used alcohol in the beginning to help me be that. 2 or 3 times throughout my drinking, my family would bust me, or they think they bust me, And they'd kind of skate around the issue, and I'd have I could see them coming. My family's coming. Shit, I know what they're going to talk to me about. And they'd get me in a little group, and they'd say, we're really concerned about your drinking. And so I'd be all pitiful and repentant, and really the whole time I was so pissed off that they were messing with me, okay? And I'm like, but I can always say and do the right things, like up front. The whole time I'm like, as soon as y'all leave, I'm going to drink, okay? And I'd stay sober for a little while. And I would, because I couldn't stand them being mad at me. I really couldn't. And my husband, I just couldn't. It was just horrible. So I'd stay sober for a while. I wouldn't drink. I'd be good. And then I always drank again. And then that would happen again. And one time it was 6 months. One time it was 9 months. The 6 month one, no, the second one, the 9 month, my husband thought it was going to be a really good idea to give to he didn't trust me. Well, no duh, And he was going to make me take Antabuse every day so that he would feel better. Well, I mean, what am I? I'm like, okay, if you need to feel better, I get it. I mean, I get it. I've lied. I'm just an alcoholic. I didn't say I was an alcoholic, but not then so much. So I'd take Antabuse, and I'm telling you, nothing. Knowing my temperament and my spirit, he'd give me that pill, and I'd put it in my mouth, and then he'd say, "Open your mouth." I mean, I was a liar, y'all. He didn't believe me. He had to make sure that I swallowed it. Okay? Just saying. I hated that. I hated it. And I can just feel the anger and the resentment that I had when I had to do that. I was just so indignant and so arrogant, and so not ready to quit drinking. We can all say the right words, and I know, we can say it. We can say we're ready. We can say we want to quit. We can say all those things. I'm willing to do anything. And I really believe that in that moment, we are as honest as we know how to be. Okay? We don't know that what we really want is you to get off my back so that I can keep drinking, or I wished I could drink normal. But one thing I know about any alcoholic, anybody we work with, anybody we talk to, time always tells. Actions always tell. I was force-fed that Antabuse, okay? And I took it long enough to gain my husband's trust back so that I could quit taking it and drink again. Now, I could not have told you that then. There was no way. I did drink again. And the funny thing was, we had a company trip, and I got off the Antabuse a couple days or 2 or 3 days before. He wasn't checking anymore, and I knew I was going to drink. Well, what I didn't know is that stuff was still in my system. And so I'm at a company dinner, and I start drinking, and I start splotching and swelling up. I mean, I'm like, and y'all, I didn't know it until I went to the restroom. I know. And I'm thinking, these people that I'm sitting with, are they drunk, or are they just not seeing? Are they being nice? Because I'm telling you, I look like a leopard. It was horrible. But you know what? I drank again. Well, I just kept drinking again until my last drunk. The last day that I drank was May 16th. Oh, and there's all kind of things I could tell you about my drinking. I showed up one time. My mother-in-law, this is cute. I'll tell you this, because so much of it's not cute. My drinking career was not long, y'all. 5-6 years. Honestly. In the 5 or 6 years that I drank, I broke almost every moral standard, almost, that I had. I hurt everybody that I loved. I did get a DWI. It doesn't make any difference if it's 5 years or 20 years. I was the tornado that ripped through the lives of the people that I loved. Now, I had a little more manners than, I looked different on the outside. My behavior was not any different. It just wasn't. I lied, I cheated, I stealed. I did not take care of my children like I should have. That breaks my heart. It was so pathetic. There were the funny moments. My mother-in-law was president of Junior League, and so all her daughter-in-laws were in Junior League. I was not president. And you know how they have holidays every year? Well, I had to work holidays, and I was supposed to work the preview party. And so you're already laughing, huh, Tracy? So I get all dressed up, and it's a black tie event. You know, it's a volunteer group, and they really do a lot of wonderful things. But it is definitely kind of society stuff. And so I have on sequins that night, and I am ripped. I am so drunk. I had started drinking that afternoon. I'm getting dressed, and I'm drinking a little bit more, and I'm getting dressed, I'm drinking a little bit more. And so I head down to the Centroplex or wherever, and I'm drunk. And my snitty little sister-in-law, who was in the in the Junior League too, took one look at me and said, "You are drunk." I said, "No, I'm not." She said, "Yes, you are." And I knew what was going to happen. She was going to get on the telephone, and she was going to call my sister Renee first, and then she was going to call my husband. And I'm like, so I go do whatever I needed to do, and very quickly, I'm out of there, okay? Because I got a plan to beat them, okay? I'm still working it. So I get in my car. I am so drunk. And I got to tell you, you know, there's a difference to me between drunk women and drunk men. Men, you're just drunk, okay? Women, there is nothing attractive about a drunk woman. Anytime, anywhere, anyhow, and I'm going to tell you, it's even worse when you have sequins on, okay? Because nobody can miss you. And so I get in my car, and I'm like, I'm so ticked. And so I've got this sequence on, and I've got this going on. You know, all those little lights. And I'm driving home like this. But you know what? I got home. I got in bed before Renee came by to see if I got home safe. Okay? So what do I do the next morning? I lie like a sailor. Okay? Because they didn't really catch me. And because really, my little sister-in-law is just snitty anyway, which is not true at all. She's amazing. But that's how I did it. I resigned from Junior League. I was afraid to go back. I was too embarrassed. On May the 16th, 1994, it was a regular day. I was working. My children were 10 and 7, so they had gone to school. I had taken them to school that morning, and I was back in my office. I had a meeting early that morning, and I was dressed nicely. One of the gifts Mom gave me is that I could sew, and I love to sew. And I was dressed very nicely. Before that day, I never had a blackout. I had a lot of brownouts, but if I thought really, really hard, I could think about who I talked to and where what I needed to do that next day to do damage control. I did have a blackout that evening. What I know is that after 4 or 5 o'clock, my husband was home. We were doing homework. I had to go somewhere, some meeting, something. My son and I, who was 10 at the time, had some words about homework. And I fussed at him. I wasn't a screamer or a slapper. I just wasn't. I'm sure I raised my voice, but I wasn't like hollering all the time. Whatever I did, it was enough for him to remember. I got in my car, my station wagon, Buick station wagon, and I'm going somewhere. Now, I don't know where I'm going. I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm going. I might not even tell y'all if I knew. I don't know. I don't remember. All I know is that I woke up in the emergency room. And the story is that I drove my big station wagon into a ditch. I must have thought it was a 7-Eleven, and I was going to get more alcohol. I don't know. Maybe I was turning around. It wasn't a wreck. I just drove it in, okay? And the lights are on, and the engine's running, and I passed out. So these cute little cops come, and they say, "Oh, we better call the emergency people." And so the EMS or whoever, I don't know, I was blacked out. They come and get me, and I wake up in the hospital. I am strapped to a board, and they are cutting my clothes off of me because they don't know if I had any internal injuries, and I am fighting them like a crazy person. Every other word is the F word, and I'm screaming and fighting and hollering. And that's how I wake up. And the worst part about it is I'd lost an earring. 2 seconds later, I was crying like a baby and asking for Mama. So, of course, they call my husband. You know, he gets his dad to come with him. I don't know why he couldn't have got my sister. Renee would at least get it, right? I mean, she was an alcoholic. But, oh, no, gets his dad. Well, I mean, my husband says that we're coming down the corridor and we can hear you with the F-bombs. And I'm like, oh, you know, I was just horrified. Obviously, they don't find anything wrong with me except that I'm just crazy as a loon and drunk, and I have to go to jail. Because even though I was passed out, I was behind the wheel. Now, you know, if I'd have been a smart drunk, I'd have at least slumped over. So I could have put some sort of question on, was I really driving? Oh, but oh no, I'm sitting right there. So it's really late, and they tell my husband, don't do bail tonight. Just let her go to jail. She'll be okay. So I can remember checking in, and, you know, they fingerprinting me. That's another one of my things on the bucket list, right? And I am so drunk. But, you know, that old helping somebody else out is kicking in. And this young woman's coming in after me, and I'm trying to help her get in her orange jumpsuit, and I can't even get in mine. You know, and I'm doing that. I'm trying to put my foot in the leg, and I can't find the leg, and I'm falling down, and I'm pathetic. Last time I told my story, I wore an orange jumpsuit. I did, and you know, I like orange, as y'all can tell. But I tell you what I don't like, and I never have. I don't like writing on my clothing, especially when it says property of East Ascension Parish, whatever. And so I spent the night in jail, in orange. They were really nice to me, and they put me in like a little cell that didn't have anybody else in there. I just went to sleep, you know. Next morning, they put me in general population. That was hilarious. Those women looked at me like, what in the hell is she doing here, you know? So it was really bad. I was not happy. And I knew I was busted. My blood alcohol was off of the chart. I probably should not have been alive. So here comes my husband and my sister. And, you know, by this time, y'all, I'm telling all this, I'm weary. I'm tired. You know, I always felt like there was a tsunami behind me, and I just had to keep going, because if I stood still, it was going to wipe me out. But to keep going, I had to drink. I had to drink. I could not drink. I had tried a lot of things, and, you know, some of that. I'm a church believer. I believe in prayer. I believe God does amazing things. We see it all the time, okay? I was prayed over more than once, I can tell you. You know, I would try to read all these self-help books. I was crazy exercise person, like crazy. You know, I would do all these things, try all these things, and try to be good. I remember one time trying to memorize all this scripture, because if I put the Word of God in my head, I'd be different. I tried it all. I could not drink. I didn't understand until years later why. But I was coming to the end. I was worn out. And I knew, here's what I did know in that jail cell. I knew they were not going to let me keep my babies. And they shouldn't have. And that life as I knew it, which was pretty darn good, was going to stop. Because they were on to my ass. So they come and pick me up, and I go home. And one of the most painful things about going home was my husband told me that my son, when they got the call that I was in an accident, my son ran. Now, he's the one that we had words with after the homework. He ran in his room, he crawled under his bed, and he wouldn't come out because he said it was his fault that Mom was in a wreck, because he had not done his homework. Do not think that we do not affect our children, and our loved ones. You know, that's a responsibility that he's had to work through, and that feeling he's had to work through. Thank God, I think he has. So I'm home, and I'm like, I can remember, I'm knowing that my life is unmanageable. For the rest of my talk, I'm going to try to use the steps because that's all my drinking. You know, my drinking wasn't that special. It really wasn't. I drank whatever I could get my hands on. I drank it straight. I drank it first thing in the morning because I woke up with an anxiety crank in my chest every single morning. And I'd walk to the washroom. I'd hit the coffee button. I'd grab my cigarettes. I'd take a hit of vodka. I'm good. And I started my day. And that is how I was starting my day and ending my day at the end. You know, nothing that remarkable. I mean, as far as drinking. Some people have better stories in that area. But to me, what is important is what has happened. And what I do know is that I knew that my life was unmanageable. I knew because of my family background that I'm an alcoholic. I mean, it wasn't like I had to come to understand that. I just had to finally admit it. I was going to be the one that didn't do that, you know. So this was my first prayer. And I was taught to pray. I can put a prayer whooping on you. I'm telling you. I am telling you, my mother taught me how to pray, and God bless her. She has prayed. She prayed 80 years. I mean, she was a God-fearing, God-loving woman. And so she taught me to pray. But I can tell you how spiritual I was when I walked into these rooms. I sat on the edge of my bed and I said, all right, God, you got it. This is it. This is the real me. I don't know what you can do with it, but here I am. And that was my prayer. I mean, literally. Like he didn't know anyway. Like I'm telling him something he didn't know. 2 days later, I had a friend pick me up and bring me to the noon meeting at Unmanageables. And it is there in that room that I began to understand my powerlessness. I began to understand that, because I still, y'all, I knew that drinking was causing me a problem. I knew that I couldn't drink well, but I still had that lurking sense that I just needed to be more disciplined. And I don't see how I could have thought anything else, because I didn't know anything else at the time. But it was in the rooms of AA that I began to understand that every time, any time, in any form, on any day, and anywhere, when I put alcohol in my body, something's going to happen to me that does not happen to the normal drinker. Remember back in that kitchen? I get wonderful. And I remembered that, and I still remember it. I still remember it. The only good news is I've recovered enough today to think the next thought. One will never be enough, and I know where my last drunk left me. And it was not pretty. It was in the rooms that I understood powerlessness, because you taught me. I would hear it over and over and over again. I did not want to be powerless, because y'all got to remember self-sufficiency and do it yourself and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And that was just where I came from. I mean, I had Mama was raised that way, and so was Daddy. And so I learned about powerlessness. I knew and believed there was a God. I really did. I really didn't have trouble with that. But, boy, I had a lot of learning to do on my God part of my relationship. Because what I knew was a lot of rules and a lot of regulations and a lot of law. I did not understand the whole grace thing, and I got to tell you, and love thing, and I am still learning it. Because, there is something in me that always, if I do good, okay, get up on time, have my daily readings, I don't know, maybe exercise. If we do good, y'all know what doing good looks like in your life. It's different than mine. I feel closer to God. I like me better. I will always do that. It was very hard for me to learn that when I got up late, when I didn't have that devotional time, when my day went to crap 100 different times, my God still loved me. That was something I had to learn in the rooms of AA. I came to believe that there was a power, my God, and that he could help me. And that, yes, I was insane. I was insane because I kept doing the same thing over and over again. I'd tweak it a little bit, but I really didn't change it. And I thought it would be different. Hadn't been different. You know, step 3 of the surface was so easy for me, but it was that made a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God as I understand him. Y'all, I had done that quite a few times before I walked into these rooms. And I don't know if anybody's hearing me, but I have been in church when I was desperate. I have been on my knees when I was desperate. I have cried out to God. And in that moment, I was as sincere as anybody could have been. But I never knew to take any action. Nobody told me that. So I would cry out to God. I would tell him I'm sorry. I'd apologize to everybody in my life. And then I'd say, okay, I'm waiting on you to change me, God. No, I didn't know that I was supposed to do something. Well, I kind of knew. I knew that you're supposed to not drink. But see, I couldn't not drink. So I was waiting for something to happen inside me so that I could not drink. I just didn't know. Not until I walked into these rooms and y'all began to understand, you know, action every time will cut away at the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is me. It's my selfishness. It is my self-centeredness. You know, every time. And it's so funny. In the real world, you know, where we live outside of AA, we understand that give and take. If we study for a test, we expect to do good. If we work, we expect to get it. You know, there's action and then whatever. But why couldn't I get that in my spiritual life? Why couldn't I understand that that I needed to take action to have something change? I just kept waiting to be changed. And I wasn't being changed. So I just kept drinking. So anyway, my first meeting, I am just blessed beyond. First couple meetings, I am blessed that I walked into where I did, because a group of women surrounded me. And they did not let me go. I mean, they didn't. I was just like trapped. I mean, honestly, that is the best thing in the world. If anybody can say any compliment about our home group or a group of women, when they say that you better look out, because whether you want to or not, they got you, and you are going to get sober. They're not going to let you go. That is a compliment to me. Okay? And they surrounded me. From the moment, from my accident, DWI, hospital thing, to the time I walked into the rooms of AA, one thing happened to me. Somehow, some way, I became willing. I did not ask for it. I don't know that I ever had it before, but in that moment, I had willingness. I didn't know what else I had, but I had willingness. And I got a sponsor who had about 3 years sobriety at that time. Colleen F. is my sponsor now, and she has been for about 15 years. But before that, a woman that sponsored me, Pat, was sponsored by Colleen. So I'm in that vein, okay? And I work the steps because the stepmother says we do. And they would not let me go. All I knew to do, I don't know, you know how some of us get sober and we get smarter? I got sober and I got dumb. I was struck dumb. I stood somewhere. I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. I'm like, what do I do? I'm not drinking. I don't know. And this woman told me, call me every morning. Meet me at the noon meeting. We talked after the noon meeting because, you know, those old timers, Dodie always said something that hurt my feelings. I didn't understand so much of it. Well, I thought they were so mean. You know, Patricia, when you said I was direct, I said, ha, because I've never been direct. I've never been direct because I don't want to hurt your feelings, you know. They were direct. So I had to talk to her about that because I didn't understand, you know. And then I'd probably have talked to her at 5 o'clock. Finally, her husband said, no calls after 9 o'clock. I did what I was told to do. She said, you need to go and make coffee. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I mean, I just did what she told me to do. Everything she told me to do. I don't know where that happened. I don't know how that happened. But what I will tell you, it was a load off. You know, when you've been running the world, I mean, it is just really nice to have somebody else do your thinking for you. And I did what she said. I really swear, I mean, I just did what she said. And we'd talk every day, and we'd talk every day. And just so happened that she and I, at the same time, we could walk every morning after we dropped our kids off to school. That's where we were, employment. And she began to tell me her story. And I began to believe. I began to understand what was going to happen, or what should happen, or what could happen. Like I said, you know, step 3, it sounds easy. Say a prayer. No, it's not easy. Simple, but not easy. I have had to turn my life and my care over. I wish, y'all, I wanted to do it one time. Okay, like, all right, God, I'm giving you all of me. You're in charge. Done. That did not happen to me. I just did not go from selfish to wonderful, well, ever really, but you know, over and over and over again, I had to choose to give my life and my will to God in the moment. You taught me how to do that. As I sat in the rooms, I began to listen. I tell you, if my sponsor told me once, she told me a million times, keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. You can't say that. That's none of your business. You can't say that. That's none of your business. I'm like, you know. But somehow I began to understand. I'm staying sober. Things are kind of calming down. My husband is not speaking to me. He is not happy, and he is not speaking to me. I have no license. I have 2 little children, and it's summer. And you know what? He wasn't going to grocery shop for me. He was not going to help me. He took away my Exxon credit card because he said I could buy beer there. I went, I never thought of that. I had lied to my husband. That is betrayal. And I had lied about our children. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know why, but in that moment, I understood that everything I was getting from him, and it wasn't, I mean, no abuse, I deserved. Nobody likes being lied to. We do not like being made a fool of. And he felt like a fool. He didn't understand why he didn't know. Well, although he is a little, you know, emotionally distant, I am a wonderful, wonderful liar when it comes to protecting my booze and my way of life. And you know what? He's got an honesty neurosis and ain't ever been drunk. I mean, how could he have possibly known? And so things are tough. I mean, they are. I had a girl that brought me to AA. My mother took me shopping. My mother brought me to AA a few times. George Hurd, I'll never forget, said, Shelly, you look like your mom was dropping you off with your little lunchbox at school. You know? But I understood that had happened because of my actions, not my husband's. And so, you know, we do now we get into the 4th step. And I have to tell you that I wished I could tell you that my first 4th step was wonderful. It was absolutely not. I laugh because it was so shallow. It was so shallow. But I did it. I did it with everything that I had in me. Now, 20 years later, oh my God, I have done some really heavy 4 steps. They have been so amazing, and I'm going to tell you why. Number 1, I'm free. There are about 4 women in my life that know everything about me. Everything. And I had to kind of update them as I started to remember things, you know. I'm like, whoa, wait, y'all ain't going to believe what I did, you know. The other thing is that I do use the form, and I do do a 4-step on a regular basis. Because you know what? The 10th step for me was too scary. I did not trust me. I did not believe that I could promptly know that I was wrong, admit it to somebody else, and make it different. I used that form, I used it. I did step work on everything for a solid year. And I am so grateful, because what I began to understand, number one, is what was my stuff and what was somebody else's stuff, okay? But I also began to see the patterns, okay? What did I do to set this up? Why am I here again? Why is this? Okay, different person, same outcome. Different situation, same yucky feeling. What am I doing over and over again that's causing me these problems? Y'all, that was so amazing. That was so amazing. You know the place in the big book where it says that, seemingly without provocation, they step on our toes. We get our feelings hurt. But if we will look back, we will see that we made decisions based on self that later put us in a position to be hurt. I didn't know I didn't know it worked like that. Do other people know it works like that? I just didn't get it. Okay? The 4th and the 5th, for me, just were not as hard. Okay? I don't know why. I was ready. 6 and 7 were hard. They were hard because I had to begin to be willing to change. I remember the first time I had done a 4th and 5th step early on, and I wasn't getting any relief. I was in so much pain, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I called my sponsor, and I said, well, maybe I need to do it again. I was like, let's do it again. And she goes, you did it fine. What's hurting, and what was hurting, is I now understood in 6 and 7 when I say I'm willing to let that go, that way of life that manifests itself in selfishness and dishonesty and self-pity, but I've been doing that now for about 48 years. And I'm willing to let that go and do it different. I am hurting. Always 6 and 7 is the hardest for me, because that is where I've got to choose to do the action to get different. I have got to do the action to get different. Over and over and over again. Practice, practice, practice. Practice being nice. Practice keeping your mouth shut. Practice not worrying. Practice thinking the right thing. Practice, 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 practice. And you know what I do know? Y'all, we can practice. I can practice. What I know that I can't do is change me. See, long before I walked into these rooms, I was trying to change me. I wanted to be the wife, the mother, the daughter, the friend, the wife. I wanted to be different. Okay? I had no power. Lack of power is my dilemma. But I could practice. The great thing about practicing in AA is we're practicing and we're going along, and all of a sudden we're in the same situation, we're doing the same thing, and I'll be darned if we're not different. I am different. I can keep my mouth shut. I don't have a resentment. I'm different. And I don't know when I stopped practicing and became different. But I know that I'm different, and I know that God did for me what I could not do for myself. I can practice. That's the action that cuts away. I talked about 10 a little bit. It's just so important to keep. I feel like on 4th and 5th steps, we empty the huge dumpster, that has been in our driveway. And for me, 10 is that daily, take the garbage can, the little waste basket out, get rid of it. Prayer and meditation have come hard for me, believe it or not. Well, probably y'all would believe it. I don't like to sit still. I have a hard time sitting still. I had to practice being still. But I have learned to be still. And I have learned on an ongoing basis to watch my God be amazing. 12. All the years that I was in church, and I knew God, loved God, I had temporary spiritual experiences. You know what? You can be real spiritual when you're drinking. I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit can flat come on you, and I'd be drunk and singing, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just could feel. I had a spiritual awakening that caused me to be different. Not momentarily happy, but different. I am different today. I'm different because I was taught to carry this message. Over and over again, sponsorship has been absolutely the single most important thing, I believe, in my sobriety. I wrap myself in AA, and every time I try, or every time I am a little weak, what do you think happens? I mean, we run into friends of Bill W. in Walmart. I get a call, somebody needs something, and I'm out of myself, out of the focus, and I'm focusing on what works, which is these 12 steps. Every time. I live better because I know today how to practice the principles. I have amazing relationships with my children. I did skip 8 and 9, and I'm going to say something very quick. Because I've gotten the time, because we do rip through the lives of the people we love, there are sometimes that sorry is just not enough. In fact, most times, I believe, with our family. I had the tremendous privilege of ushering my mother into eternity this year. And every time I went, every time I didn't want to go, and every time I went, and every time I bathed her, and every time I fed her, I knew that I was making an amends. Because until you have a child that you worry about every night, that you worry about your grandchildren, we don't have any idea. And because of this program, I was able to do that. I got back more than she ever received from me. I've always gotten back more than I put in. Always. It's just the way it works. I am so grateful that y'all let me tell my story today. I love all of y'all, and I love AA. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.